Hi everybody, this is Kevin and welcome back to another video. And today I would like to share my spoiler-free thoughts on The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 2, which I just beat this game and finished watching the credits roll, and I sat there asking myself, am I ever going to get to the ending of a Trails game and not cry, not feel all these emotions? Am I ever going to play a bad Trails game? And I guess the answer is no, because I haven't played one yet. You know, people told me that Trails of Cold Steel 1 was a bad game, and I guess I still stand by it. It is my least favorite of the Trails games, but by no means is it a bad game. In fact, you need the 90-hour Erebonian Arc prologue in Trails of Cold Steel 1 to truly enjoy Trails of Cold Steel 2, and I'm assuming the later entries. Because yes, Trails of Cold Steel 2 is even better than the first game, and I absolutely loved it. Honestly, I can't wait to start Trails of Cold Steel 3, but before I go any further, I have to sit back and record a few videos, this one included, and my hours-long story discussion and review, which will hopefully be uploaded, sometime next week or early next week, so stay tuned for that. But on to Trails of Cold Steel 2. So obviously, as the name suggests, it is the direct sequel to Trails of Cold Steel. It takes place 1 month after the events of the first game, following our main protagonist, Rean Schwarzer, as he must reunite with all his friends in Class 7 and put a stop to the Erebonian Civil War. Now, while this is the second game in the Trails of Cold Steel arc, it is actually the 7th overall Trails game. And someone such as myself, who's been very fortunate to get into this series now, with all these games having proper US releases, like Zero, Azure, Reverie just came out, which I know I haven't gotten to that point yet, but Reverie's waiting for me. So I've had the privilege of being able to play these games in release order, and there is so much payoff you get just by knowing the details that happened in the earlier games, specifically in Trails in the Sky the Third, which I stand by as the most important game in this entire series, just for the amount of lore, backstory, overall plot points that got started there, which are still going on and still aren't even resolved at the end of Trails of Cold Steel 2. And just fantastic, man. So, but also you should play the Sky games just because of Estelle. Estelle Bright. So yeah, you should start there. And then also, another thing that even I brought up when I played Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, at the end of Trails to Azure, there are things that spoil what happens in Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2. And the thing of it is, Zero and Azure take place at the same time as Cold Steel 1 and 2, except in Zero and Azure, you're in Crossbell with Lloyd Bannings and the SSS, and in Cold Steel 1 and 2, you're with Rean Schwarzer, Class 7, and Erebonia. So you get different perspectives, and after playing them in that order, that is the definitive order, because in my opinion, the things that happen in Cold Steel 2 aren't going to be as impactful if you haven't played Zero and Azure first and aren't familiar with the characters and the storyline going there. So, yeah, I guess one way or the other you're going to get kind of spoiled, but it's better to do Zero and Azure first, also because of like the graphical style, so you're not going backwards. You can continue going in the 3D games. So, there's that. The games are just fun. You know, I hear a lot of discussion nowadays about people like, oh, we don't want to play these super long games. We want to do, 20, 30, 40-hour games, and you just move on to the next one. With a game like this, where there are so many interesting characters, so many different side quests to do, you just get lost in the world. You can read all these books, like, Gambler Jack and Carnelia, that was in the first game, and what was the other one, like, Red Moon Rose or something like that, about the vampire. You can read all these cool stories and just get immersed in the world and the lore. That I would rather do that. I'd rather spend 100 hours in the Trails games than bounce from game to game to game. And that's what I'm going to keep doing, because I'm going to play Trails of Cold Steel 3 next. But, another little thing I hear a lot too is how the Cold Steel games are just, they turn the anime level from the dial is at a 10, they turned it up to like an 11 or a 12. But thinking back, I mean, all the Trails games, Trails in the Sky, Zero and Azure, they're all anime as fuck. And yeah, okay, maybe Cold Steel's more anime as fuck, but for me, I loved it. And you get to see these characters all fleshed out. You can do their bonding events a la Persona, which I think it's safe to say they essentially did rip off Persona with the whole free day doing the bonding events thing. And, you know, maybe it's better in Persona, but I still had a lot of fun. And you really learn a lot about the characters by doing those events. And it's a shame that for certain scenes, they give you like 5 or 6 bonding points, and there's, you know, 12 characters. So it's like, who do you choose? But if you play the game again on New Game Plus, you can see all the scenes. And a lot of them are actually really important for cutscenes that happen later in the game, and they just add so much more to the characters. So my point here is I love spending time with all the characters. I would almost say, like, the character arcs are better than the overall story itself. At least that's how I felt. And it's very impressive how, like, a character I didn't necessarily like in Trails of Cold Steel 1, by the end of Trails of Cold Steel 2, I'm like, wow, that's my favorite character in the entire game. Like, man, just the development there and really seeing them grow. But it's also really interesting to take a look back and see how all these games are more or less structured the same way with their chapters and the way you do quests, the battle system. It's really, you know, they perfected it. They perfected it as early as the Sky games, and they've just improved upon it. It's crazy, really. So, like, the Sky games, you're a bracer, you do the odd jobs, slay monsters, help the townspeople. In Zero and Azure, you're a police officer with the special support section. Totally not a bracer, doing the same thing. In Cold Steel 1, you do the requests for TOA, for the student council, and, you know, you'll go on your field studies and help out the townspeople there. And it follows the same structure where you get a little cutscene, then you go around and get your free day, talk to whoever, talk to the NPCs, do your quests, and then you get some crazy cutscenes at the end of each chapter. And that's the thing, too. That's another thing I love so much about these games, is in between chapters, just going around talking to the NPCs, you learn so much about them. Like, in particular, probably the most relevant of the NPCs are the fellow classmates, not just in Class 7, but, you know, like Patrick, Kenneth, Alan and Bridget, Vivi and Lynn, like all these, Rex, all these fun characters who, like, I always love talking to them and see what they're doing next. Like, Rex is hanging near Claire. Oh, I gotta get a picture of her. It's just great, man. And then Alan and Bridget's story about how the two of them like each other, and then eventually they're able to confess their feelings. Just so sweet. And then, of course, Anton and Ricky, like, those guys, which made their debut in Trails in the Sky first chapter, and appeared in all the Trails in the Sky games, and then Trails from Zero, and then Cold Steel 1 and 2, and just that whole story arc was something fun to watch. The battle system, again, it's amazing how everything has just slowly gotten better and better. Like, in Trails in the Sky first chapter, it's just basic. Second chapter adds chain crafts or whatever, combo crafts. Sky the Third, you can bring along a 5th party member to give you buffs. Then in Zero, all that and more, Team Rush, you can do the combo S crafts. You can bring 2 party members along as reserves and swap them in the menu to bring them into battle and stuff like that. Azure brings in the Master Quartz, Burst Mode. Then in Cold Steel, Arcus and Link attacks. And then, minor spoiler for the ending of Trails of Cold Steel 1, but with 2, you have Valimar, the Ashen Knight, and you can get in these Divine Knight battles, the mech battles. And I'm really curious to see, there's obviously going to be more mech battles going forward in Cold Steel 3, because we know there's more mechs running around out there. Well, there's a ton of them, but I'm not even just talking about the Divine Knights, you know, the Soldats. So there's going to be more of those battles, and I'm just wondering, like, what more can they even add to the battle system? Because it's literally perfect now, and you have to assume they're going to add more stuff to it, so I'm really curious to see there. And of course, you can, like, swap in and out the party members. But I just love my time with these games, man, and really, of all the games I played this year, the Trail series has been my favorite. Like, I absolutely loved every single one of these games. I play them, and I get to the point where it's like, I want to move on to the next game. You know, like, I get close to the end, I want to move on. But then you get to those endings, man. It's like, no, I don't want to say goodbye to you guys yet. No, don't go. Which I'm not really going to truly say goodbye, because in Trails of Cold Steel 3, we're going to obviously see the same cast again. I mean, Reed's the main protagonist. We're going to see him some more, and the rest of them. And it's just so cool how everything is being connected now, and it truly makes it worthwhile to play them all in release order, like I said earlier in this video. I can't recommend that enough. In fact, it's really easy to play all the games in release order, so I don't know why some people choose not to. And it's like, oh, should I start with Cold Steel 1? Should I start with Trails of Cold Steel 4? Like, imagine if someone did that. But, Zero, Azure, Cold Steel 1 through 4, Reverie, and even Daybreak, that's going to be released on the PS4 as well. All of them are available on the PS4. The only exception are the 3 Sky games, which the first 2 you can find them really rare probably on the PSP, but the preferred way to play them is on the computer, which is how I play them. And I'm a console gamer through and through. I love my PlayStation, but you know, I played them on the PC, and you just plug in an HDMI cable so you can get it to your TV or whatever. But anyway, yeah, the game was just great. What else can I even talk? The music, I mean, okay, so maybe they actually reused some tracks from Trails of Cold Steel 1 for specific town areas and certain themes, but it worked. The new tracks were fantastic. There's one track in particular for the snowboarding minigame, which has no right being as epic as it is. It literally sounds like in any other RPG, it would be a boss theme. And in Trails of Cold Steel 2, it's the theme that plays during the snowboarding minigame. I mean, you can't make it up. It's just crazy, man. But, you know, like, Tiling to Arcus, which is one of my favorite songs from the first game, that was, like, the main boss theme. That appears again here, except it's not the main boss theme. I think it's only for the trial chests, which are similar to monster chests, but you have to use specific party members, and then they can get overdrive. That's the other thing I forgot to mention from the combat. Yeah, you have overdrive now, which is similar to burst mode from Trails to Azure. But yeah, the great soundtrack. The new battle themes are all awesome. There's new ambient themes because of like the events that happen at the end of Cold Steel 1, where hope sort of seems lost at a certain point. It has a nice tone to it. I really like the tracks in the game. I think the one I'm referring to, or at least attempting to refer to, is called Trudge Along. So look that one up if you will, or you probably already know what I'm talking about if you played the games. And I love that theme. But yeah, the game was great. I loved it. I also know too, I think it's easier than Trails of Cold Steel 1. I had a lot of trouble. There were some bosses in Cold Steel 1 where those guys, they were cheap, man. They were cheap. With this one, I guess you can just spam your S-crafts to defeat them all quickly. But I didn't really have any problem with anyone. Maybe there were a few bosses I had to retry, but otherwise, it seemed easier than the first game. And it has the classic boss fights where you can't win, or maybe you can win if you do New Game Plus and you carry over your levels or whatever. But yeah, I think pretty much every Trails game have those bosses where it's not intended for you to win, and maybe if you win, you get like different dialogue after the fact. So that's cool. And yeah, it's just, there's a lot I want to talk about, but I can't because I said this is the spoiler-free video, so you'll have to just stay tuned for my spoiler-filled thoughts of the whole story discussion and review. And yeah. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and stay tuned for more videos coming soon, specifically my spoiler discussion and review, which will be out later this week or early next week. So thanks guys, have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Peace out.
99.